Welcome back to Hashtag Single with Jeanette Bonner. I am not a relationship expert or sex therapist. I'm just a regular New York City woman navigating the world as a single, independent feminist. Hashtag Single is about having honest conversations with other singles in today's device-obsessed culture. So I hope you'll join me on this interesting, challenging, and complex journey as we navigate the ins and outs of singledom. What's up, gorgeous singles? Jeanette here. So happy to have you with us today, especially because it is a very special month. Yours truly is celebrating my birthday on June 3rd. So happy birthday to all my fellow single, extroverted, charming Geminis out there. Live your life. We all get a birthday month to celebrate. So I hope you're having a great time. My guest today is a very badass woman working in the field of matchmaking. Actually, that's kind of a disservice to her, as she is a very badass CEO and founder of matchmaking company Select Date Society. Amber, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and to clet's my single birthday with me. Welcome.
Happy birthday. I am so excited to celebrate with you.
I'm such a selfish person. I'm like, let's talk about me. Who can I bring on the podcast and talk about me for a month? Oh, truly. So, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge something. So I was looking back at our emails, and you had initially reached out to me in the fall of 2020 after hearing another one of our matchmaker episodes with Ashley Campana of Lisa Clampett Matchmaking, I think, which was episode 31, like 40 episodes ago, which is just insane. So I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate your patience, because it took me a year and a half to get you on the podcast, so that's 100% on me.
I am so happy to be here. The best matchmakers are the ones that collaborate, and we collaborate often with Lisa and her team. And so I know Ashley well. And so, yeah, I was so excited to hear her as a guest in the past.
Oh my gosh. Well, like I said, it's kind of like dating, like it's a metaphor, right? Like, you know, it's like you reached out to me a very long time ago. Like you could have easily written me off when I reached back out and be like, who's this lady? She's been toying with my emotions. Am I coming on the podcast? Am I not being up? I want to be the person that's like, I can't wait to have you. So I appreciate, and I don't take that for granted when I'm just sort of like, hey, it's finally time. And you're like, I'm still in. I have a lot of gratitude for you. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Well, so let's talk about you first.
Okay.
I have a short little bio I'm going to read to familiarize the audience with you. So I will read that if you don't mind. And feel free to correct me if I am wrong on anything.
Okay.
Amber Lee is a certified matchmaker and certified strategic intervention coach with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. She has been a professional matchmaker since 1998. And in May of 2020, she co-founded Select Date Society, a luxury matchmaking service working with Fortune 500 executives, professional athletes, models, and other high-income earners and, quote, high-caliber singles. She's been featured on Good Morning America, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Newsweek, Cosmopolitan Magazine, The New York Post, Marie Claire, Bustle, among many others. And this year she was nominated as a Woman of Impact by the American Heart Association, which honors change makers dedicated to making a lasting impact on the health of our community. So congratulations on that front, first of all.
Thank you. Yeah, and actually they just announced I was the winner.
Wait, you won and I missed it?
Yeah, it was. So the Woman of Impact is a campaign the American Heart Association does every year, and it's based on like region. So I was the winner for the Richmond, Virginia area.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which also means, I mean, it really means that we did just a fabulous job fundraising.
Okay.
So basically I reached out to so many other matchmakers and love professionals, and then my own network, you know, and clients and friends and family. And I was just like so overwhelmed by like the outpouring of support. Like so many people were so generous. And so that's something that we're really passionate about. Like we always tell people, we tell our clients, like while we take care of your heart, your membership, part of that is taking care of someone else's, because as a company, we've committed to giving a portion of our quarterly profits to the American Heart Association. So it's a cause like we're super passionate about.
That's so beautiful. Just like the metaphor of the heart. Like what a beautiful alignment.
Yes.
I think that's really special. So, and you deserve to win that nomination, except now they're going to make you fundraise next year, even more money. So,
they've asked me to be on the executive board and share that.
They're like, listen, let's let this lady go. She is going nowhere.
Yeah.
That's really cool, though. And I think it's really special when anyone has a cause or charity or nonprofit they champion and believe in, whether or not it ties in so well with your branding. I think it's just as to fill in the rest of your life. I'm an actor, obviously, and I perform with a company called Only Make Believe, which is named after a song in Carousel. And we go into local hospitals and schools, and we do interactive theater for kids with long-term illnesses and disabilities under the
oh my gosh, I love
that.
The
umbrella feeling that, or umbrella belief that imagination or imaginative play and theater is a healing agent. And I've been doing that since 2013, and it's just another part of my life. And I don't know who I was before it. It's like it brings so much value to my life, to who I am as an actor, to be able to give back, but to just go in the hospitals every day and be exceptionally grateful for the health and the skills that I have been given just by often kind of random genetics. It's just like, it's
awesome.
Really powerful to me. So I think it's always great when anyone has, like I said, something that they're championing outside of their business. You're not just doing it because it sounds good on your resume. You know what I mean? Like, it's important to you. And I think that's great. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's get started. Tell me about your journey to co-founding your company with your partner, Sandra Myers. What drew you to matchmaking as a profession in the first place? And, what was the moment you just knew you had to strike it out on your own?
So I have been a matchmaker my entire life. I will tell you, I went to college when I was 16. I was one of those kids that was just like smart and ambitious. And I thought I was going to be an attorney. I've always been like really good at negotiating and, having those hard conversations. And so that was kind of my plan when I was 16. Well, when I was 18, I answered an ad in the newspaper way back when there were print newspapers with job ads. And it was an ad for a receptionist at a matchmaking company. So I planned on working there just for the summer between semesters, and I ended up dropping out of college and started working full time at this matchmaking firm. And I just never looked back. I was obsessed with like love and our clients and finding them their person. And so I've been doing it now for 24 years. Sandra and I met when we were working for a big franchise company back in like the mid 2000s, I think like 2009. And so we've always had like these side talks about like, oh my gosh, we can do this so much better. And we've always had such great success for our individual clients, and viewed it very different than like a big corporation kind of views the whole process. And so this is where the Heart Association comes in. So in May of 2020, actually it was Mother's Day. I'm a mom. I have a 14-year-old. Myself, my husband, my mother-in-law, and our daughter were driving to go put flowers on my husband's grandmother's grave. And I just had a sudden cardiac arrest. While I was driving, I had no previous heart conditions. I didn't feel bad that day. Like literally my heart just stopped. It was like an electrical, the electrical part of my heart just stopped. And so I passed out. I went unconscious. I was the one driving. So picture this, my foot's on the gas.
Oh my God.
My family's in the car. We drove over 4 lanes of traffic and hit a brick house head on. So thank God everybody else was okay. Like they just walked away with, minor pains and bruises. I had to, first of all, a Good Samaritan stopped and thank God, like had a nursing background and performed CPR on me, and emergency medical responders arrived within minutes. They had to use the defibrillator to shock me back. I was on a ventilator for a couple days and unconscious. They had to repair my liver and spleen, like all this craziness. So all I know is I don't remember any of this. This has all been retold to me. I wake up in the hospital in May of 2020, in the midst of COVID. This is like the height of COVID. And I just had this overwhelming sense that life is short. What I was meant to do, I better get to work doing it, because tomorrow's not promised. And so I was like, get my phone, get my computer. You need to call Sandra. Like, we need to launch this. We need to do it. So behind the scenes, Sandra and a couple other really great friends and colleagues got to work, built the website. By June 1st, we were live. I was still broken ribs, could barely move, recovering, and we just went all in, and we haven't looked back.
Amber, holy cow.
I know, that's a lot, right?
I know, but I just want to also acknowledge your attitude about it. Like, it's so positive. I mean, as you're telling the story, you're like laughing and you're full of brightness and energy and hope. And it's not a sad story of like this horrible thing that happened to me, but this catalyst for change. It's a very scary story, obviously. And I'm sure, like, you know, there were times where you were not laughing about it.
Right.
Because I mean, that's really terrifying. It's really scary on a lot of levels. So I feel like I want to reach out and hug you virtually when you're in the same room, just for having to go through that experience, but also for using it to share your story with other people. Obviously, now I see the connection with American Heart Association. Yeah, like brings it full circle for you.
Yeah, but I really think that like the way that my outlook really impacts our clients, and it's always been how I've approached like matchmaking and dating. Like, you have to approach it from a place of hope. And a place of optimism, for sure. If you're looking for the bad, that's what you're going to find. Like, you're going to find what you're looking for. So I always look for the good.
Right. And a lot of people don't do that, which
right.
A lot of people are, which I think it's going to actually we're going to come back to in this episode. But I think a lot of people, me included, like, can get very worn down by this and very bitter about the whole thing and feel very victimized with their situation, especially because it's not anything you can really control, right? It's like so much of it is sort of like, well, there's only a finite amount of things that I am in charge of. I can control how many dating apps I'm on. I can control how much time I put into it. I can control the boundaries I put up for who to see and who not to talk to. But everything else is left up to chance, which is really hard. So it's hard to stay positive. It's hard to have a lot of hope and just be like, you know what? And I think that's partially like sort of a through line for this podcast, sort of like, if I never meet my person and this is my life and it's like, is that going to be okay? Yeah. Fuck yeah. It's great. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with that. I'm a good human. I love my life. If it doesn't come to me, it just wasn't in the cards. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Where you have to start with dating. You have to be happy with yourself and you have to be happy with where you are in life before you're going to attract the right
That's
partner
very much like part of my mindset and my mantra for not just dating, but for the podcast too. So I want to ask you a question. Your business focuses on luxury singles, high income earners, and what you call high caliber singles. So can you define what a high caliber? Because I'm super high caliber. However, I'm how shall we say, low income.
So the great thing about our business model, we're like executive recruiters for singles. So you don't have to hire us to be able to be matched by us. So we have this great network of singles who have kind of thrown their hat in the ring. They haven't paid us a dime, but they've said, hey, I'm a high caliber single. I'd love to be considered as a match for one of your clients.
Sure, yeah.
And so, you know, they're somebody that we would look at. And then there are clients who hire us. They're definitely high caliber in the sense that they're relationship minded, right? They're ambitious. They take care of themselves. They're pretty well traveled and cultured. Like they check all the boxes.
Catch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
They're definitely a catch. And then also, like, we're expensive. Our programs start at $25,000. Our executive VIP level clients are paying us $150,000. And so the clients that hire us,
that's annual, right?
Yeah, that's for their membership. That's for their program.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And so not only can they afford to hire us, but also like they put their money where their mouth is. This is a high priority for them. And they're the type of people who are, you know, they're CEOs and executives who are used to outsourcing stuff. And so they're used to hiring professionals to get the job done. They hire us to get the job done, but it's also like something that's high value for them. Like they're really serious about finding their person.
When did your clients follow you when you left your former matchmaking agency to create Select Date Society?
No. So the matchmaking world is full of non-competes and non-disclosures and all of that. And so we really were starting from scratch. Although, so Sandra and I both been doing this. I think Sandra's been doing this for 26 years, me 24 years. So we have a huge network. Like everybody we know knows that we're matchmakers, right? And so clearly, like anybody who knows anyone single is sending them our way. So it was, I mean, we built our network up at Select Date Society very, very quickly.
Interesting. Okay. That's fascinating to me because there's a lot of matchmaking companies. I've had them on the podcast, but it also seems like there's a finite bowl of humans that make that kind of money that can afford to hire a matchmaker, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And so we're working with, as a company, less than 50 clients at a time so that we can really get them results. Like everybody on our team has been doing this for decades. So we have really experienced matchmakers that we take really good care of so that they'll stay with us. And they really believe in our mission. They really are results oriented. I think so. All matchmakers aren't created equal. So there are some companies that are like these big corporations where they incentivize their matchmaking team by like fulfilling contracts. So they say, hey, you get a bonus. You know, this client has a 6-date contract. When you get them out on their 6 dates, we'll give you a bonus. Well, that creates a culture where it's like almost like a meat market, right?
Like a quota.
Yeah, you're just trying to fulfill a quota and you really don't care. And so we've created a culture of such care and concern. Our matchmakers are bonus based on when clients go on hold because they're in a good, healthy relationship. So they get a bonus then.
I love that.
Yeah, and then they get a success bonus when somebody says, hey, I found my person, and they give us a testimonial. They got really big bonuses when they get testimonials with photos. So we incentivize them to get people into relationships. And I can tell you, our clients see it. Like they know that we really, really care about their outcome.
I love that. That's so great. I mean, you really do feel like you're a champion of these people and their lives and not just like, hey, you're helping me pay my bills.
Right. And we really are. Like, it's so fun. I can't even tell you how many times I wake up to a text message from someone on our team who's like, hey, Bill and Pam just sent this photo. You know, they're on their 5th date and they're so happy. Like, we literally text each other photos of happy clients like all the time.
That's so fulfilling. I feel like I could see, I love when my friends find someone. I love when my friends find someone that I suggested to them. So that's like a major dopamine hit for you.
It is.
Every day you're like, I'm so happy and I'm so good at this. Like, it's just very empowering, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely. And it's so fulfilling. Like it's very easy when you're working in this industry and you're working for a great company to like almost be obsessed. Sometimes my husband has to remind me like, hey, you have to go on a date with me. Like, because I'm so obsessed with like what's going on with our clients.
That's really funny. So I know like the pandemic obviously changed everything. Are you located or are your clients located in a specific area of the country, or have you sort of expanded that to embrace the nation now that someone could potentially go on a date like California to New York with virtual technology?
Yeah, we've always been nationwide. And in fact, our whole team is remote. Everybody works from home nationwide. So we do Zoom meetings with our clients. And we're in most major metro areas. So, you know, New York, San Fran, DC, like we're in all the major cities. And we've seen that a lot. Like the pandemic has definitely changed the mindset. Like now people are like focused on finding their person rather than finding somebody in their neighborhood. We have a client right now who's engaged. She's in, she was in South Carolina. He's in Chicago. Now they're building a house in Denver. They're not even going to end up in either of their cities they started out in. We have another, we have another client. She's in North Carolina. The gentleman that she's with is in Virginia. You know, they're a lot closer, but they're making it work. So a lot of people are open to dating long distance.
That's so fascinating. I feel like that's like a huge value that you could never get from friends trying to hook you up or dating apps, because I can't set my parameters to nationwide. Like,
right.
It would just be so overwhelming and insane, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
But you're like, I have a very specific match for you out in Phoenix. Like how else would I have normally met that person except that they, the common denominator is you know?
Right.
So that's neat that you're like, let's open up the world a little bit. What if your person lives in Guatemala? I don't know. That's an extreme example, but I love that idea that like, I'm dating in New York, which sucks. Like, no, everyone knows that. So that's not even part of a negative mentality. It's actually just a fact. It's really challenging to date in major metropolitan cities because of the amount of single people here. So no one actually, there's over casualization of dating because we have such a plethora. So and I'm stuck in the boat of it. Like, I'm like, this is my city. These are my options. I have to date in New York City. And I'm grateful that there are options, but it's also a little bit of a handicap.
Yeah. I was in New York City last week. We had the Global Love Conference where matchmakers from all over the world come together for a conference every year in Manhattan. And so the culture there, like, people walk so fast. they have their AirPods on, like they're not making eye contact and talking to each other. So I can definitely see how dating and like meeting people when you're out and about is challenging.
Well, also just as a woman, we have to put up boundaries and walls for our own safety. Like, when I was on the subway the other day and I was reading a magazine and I was going to a rehearsal, and someone sat down next to me, a guy, and started reading the magazine over my shoulder. And I didn't look at him in the eye. I just sort of like pulled away a little bit, like, what the fuck are you doing, buddy? Right. And then showed my discomfort. And then he said, "Is it good?" And I looked up, and it's someone I knew, and he was fucking with me. But I was like, oh my God, you cannot do that to me. Like, I was like, my heart was going so fast. This guy's going to be like a total creeper on the subway, and he's like, you're right. I totally shouldn't have done that, but it was really funny. And I was like, okay, it was really funny.
I thought about that though. Like, if you're in New York City, you're so trained to be like cautious because you're concerned about safety.
Don't talk to me. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it really, like, although you need to be that way to protect yourself, it really does limit yourself. For example, like, I met my husband in the grocery store in New York City.
Never.
Like, you wouldn't just go talk to a stranger in the grocery store. So
if someone started talking to me in the grocery store, red flag immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This is not the time and place. I don't want to be talked to at the gym. I don't want to be picked up on the subway. There's like, I'm doing my business and there are times and places where I want to talk to people. But like, again, if I was less concerned about my safety in New York City, that would have been a cute little meet cute story. Like, someone sat down next to me on the subway and started talking to me about the magazine I was reading, and then we exchanged numbers. But my immediate reaction was like, hey, asshole, fuck off.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Would you approach a guy? Like, if you saw somebody out and about and you're like, oh, he looks like my type, or there's something about him, would you approach him?
I have. Not on the subway, though, because I feel like the subway is so transactional and it's such a short amount of time. And mostly because people are in the mindset of like, I need to get somewhere, or I need to go to work, that they're not open to receiving, if you will. Like, energetically, it just doesn't feel right. But there's a couple guys I've sort of eyed on the subway and then, talked. Should I just give him my number? Should I just give him a card? And then as I'm exiting, you know what I mean? I've also been picked up on the subway and I didn't like it. So yeah, I think it's, that's absolutely part of the New York single equation is circumstantial. Like, you have to feel safe. You have to feel ready and open, which we often are not.
Right. Yeah.
It's just what it is.
We found a lot of men are very receptive. Like, they actually really find it sexy when a woman approaches them. And so I always tell women, like, sometimes you don't have to, like, if you see somebody and you're just out at some random place, like, you don't have to try to make eye contact and wait for him to come over. Like, make the first move. I think that, all the rules are just so out the window nowadays.
Agreed. I mean, I hit on someone last summer at the pool.
Awesome.
He was like next to me and I was like corner of the eye. I was reading. I was like, fuck, that guy is hot, but it still took me like a good 20 minutes probably. And if you're on the subway or if you're grocery shopping, you just don't have that 20 minutes. But when someone's sitting next to you at the pool, I finally was just like, what are you reading? or something like that. Or like, he went to go swim. And when he came back, I was like, how's the water? There's like, a pool is a place where I feel open and safe.
Yep. Yeah.
But,
I can definitely see that.
If I'm going to my gynecologist appointment, please do not talk to me. No,
right.
I'm not available. I don't even care. Not in the mood. So back to you. So you told me in an email that you have more female clients than men, which I find super interesting because historically matchmaking agencies would work primarily with men to, I guess I'm talking kind of like 80s, 90s mentality of like to find them wives, for better, for worse.
It's interesting. I feel like you said 80s and 90s. Like there were such sleazy matchmaking companies where
they're so
it would
great.
be like, like these rich guys, and there's this catalog of model women, and So we work with both men and women. Either one can hire us to be a client. I'll say it's probably 60-40, slightly more women than men. And I think that's number one. We get a lot of referrals from women. Like women meet somebody through a matchmaker, and they tell all their single girlfriends and send them all our way. They sit in the, salon getting whatever done, and they're talking about it, whereas men are a little more private about it. So I think that's where the numbers get skewed a little bit. But but it also, it changes every single day here as far as like numbers and what's going on. And it's definitely a very like fluid thing. It's weird because people always ask me about like demographics or like, how many clients do you have or how many clients are in a relationship? And literally this is a world that numbers change every single day. So I always tell people like, don't hold me to this. This is kind of a rough idea. Yeah.
But I do find that really interesting. I feel, generally speaking, women are more likely to seek help to improve their lives. So that means they're more likely to go to therapy. They're more likely to go to the doctor. They're more likely to ask for help in sort of any category in a general way. So I think it's sort of in line with that. It's like, well, I'm having trouble dating, but it's not embarrassing to me to be like, hey, I'm going to hire a matchmaker, where there's still a stigma, I think, again, a generalization, but as a man to be like, I need help, or I need someone to be working with me in this situation. But when
I would agree with you.
I would say, I don't think it's as simple. I was like, I wonder if it's just about the fact that where we're at, and it's not a perfect world, but in 2022, we have more women working in the C-suite. So they have more income to be hiring a matchmaker. And or that also means they have less time, which is the same thing as like men in the past would have hired a matchmaker because they, as you said, they delegate and they don't have enough time, so they have to bring in a matchmaker, right? So like now that we have more women making competitive salaries, not all women, guys, we're not there, but like now that we have some women making competitive salaries who are CEOs and working in the C-suite, they're at the place that men were at in the 80s and 90s. I don't know that's just a theory. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, those are absolutely the women that we work with. When you talk about like badass women, like, oh my gosh, I feel so lucky to work with the women we work with. We have, one of our new clients last week, she's building a $10 million home. She works for one of the huge tech companies as an executive. Like she's killing it. She's amazing. We have so many women entrepreneurs and business owners, like women who are super successful, ambitious. And that's, I think, partly why they have the mentality to reach out for help, because they're like, look, I want to get the job done. I want results. I know you can get results. Like, let's do this.
Yes. I think that's really cool. When you talk about progress and change is small in society, but if you can start to, you're like, oh, actually, hang on. We do see a little bit of a shift here. Maybe women are more in control and they're like, you know what? No, find me a husband.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to sit around waiting to be chosen.
Right.
Find someone that I want. Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love that. But you have like a personal connection to matchmaking, right? Isn't that how you met your husband?
Well, I met him in the grocery store. So, but I will say I used my title as a matchmaker as kind of an in. So,
Clever girl. Okay.
yeah. So the interesting thing, my husband is visually impaired. And so he couldn't see me. And so I was like, fuck, I have to make the first move. He's so handsome. Like he's like probably the tall, dark, and handsome guy that most women would be like, ooh. And he's a speaker. He happened to be coming back from a speaking engagement that day. So he's like got his jeans and blazer and just really sharp.
Looked good. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good dresser anyway. So I'm like, wow, like look at him. I'm looking and I see no wedding ring. That's the first thing I look for. I literally walked out. I was at the checkout and he was waiting for an assistant to help him. I saw him and I walked out of the grocery store, and I'm not a woo-woo matchmaker at all, but literally like something came over me and I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I am meant to know that person. I am missing out on this opportunity. I turned around. I mean, talk about, I didn't take 20 minutes like you were saying at the pool. Like in that instant, like I felt it. Like I felt the universe say, yes, I have to go talk to this person. Turned around, went and found him. And I just said, hey, like I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm a matchmaker. Are you single? And he just smiled and said, well, are you? And then, we just started talking.
Good line, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes. That's clever, because if it had gone wrong, if he had been like, yes, and happily so, leave me the fuck alone, I'm grocery shopping lady.
Yeah, then I would have been like, okay, no worries.
Then you could have been like, oh, I had a client I thought, would be great for you, but like NBD, sorry, have a great day.
Right.
Yeah, that's clever. Maybe I'll just go up to people and I mean, I will be honest with you. I've used this podcast many times to try to, I've brought people, anyone who listens constantly will know, like I've actually brought former dates onto
the podcast. Yeah. I mean, that's great to be like, hey, I do a podcast on singles. Like, are you single? Like, what a great opener.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not above it. Well, so this is, speaking on that topic, so when we were emailing, you did share that story with me, and you recommended, we talked a little bit about this, watching the Netflix show Love is Blind.
Did you watch it?
So can we get into this? Because I have a lot of thoughts.
Yes.
I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, so the first big thought that I want to talk about is the concept of the one. Especially because I think I saw some language on your website that you use about finding the one. And obviously I think this is a concept that society is selling us. This concept, there is one person for everybody, and you just have to go find them.
Well, I think the one could be one of many. Like any person could become the one.
Yes. Okay, good. Because, the things that like kind of, and this is probably why I didn't watch the show, although I will admit I'm not even a closeted, but like hardcore bachelorette watcher. But
oh my gosh, Love is Blind is so much better.
I like it, but they are still selling this idea of getting married, of getting engaged. Like that is the end goal. After 10 days of knowing somebody, the goal is to get. And I know they do that for like reality TV purposes, because there needs to be like why are we all doing this? You guys are just going to leave the show and talk for another 3 years. That's boring. Like there has to be a high stakes game, but this isn't the only show. There's 90 Day Fiance. I think
Married at First Sight.
Yeah. Yes. This concept of this forced concept of finding a person and sealing the deal. And that's something that really bothers me, because I don't think life should be driven towards marriage as an end game. Like, I don't think that is the ultimate achievement of life. And certainly that's not why I'm dating to like get married. And people I talk to and bring on this podcast are the same way. We're just sort of like, why is everybody obsessed with this idea that like, oh, if you get engaged, if you get married, you won?
Yeah. I agree with you. So Mike and I were in a relationship living together for 11 years before we got married. And you know what? The funny thing is, we only got married after I had that heart scare. And it was partly because in the hospital, I was like, oh my God, who do I want to make medical decisions for me? Do I really want my mom making those decisions?
Yeah.
And it just made sense. I mean, not that to make it not romantic, but it just made sense. We're like, yeah, when things get serious, like we want to be each other's person to sign off on stuff. But for us, we talk about that a lot because he works in the relationship industry too. And we talk about like marriage is not the end all be all. We have so many people that we see in unhappy marriages.
Right, exactly.
You know, I always tell clients, like, focus on finding your person. Like if you're dreaming about the wedding and the dress, you're really not looking at it realistically. Like you need to look at like, who do I want holding my hand when I go through some shit? Like who do I want there by my side? It's really about, and that's why I kind of like Love is Blind, because in the concept, like clearly finding somebody and marrying them in 10 days is ridiculous, but the basic concept that love and relationships are so much more about like how you feel with that person and are you aligned on your core values versus is he 6 foot tall with a chiseled jaw, you know? So I think it gets people starting to think about things that are way more important in relationships than just the physical.
Yeah, which I love.
Although the cast was all gorgeous, it's like
I know that's what I was
kind
thinking.
of yeah. It's like okay, nobody's gonna meet somebody and be like, "Wow, you're really ugly,"
Like,
you know.
It would have been an actual, real, interesting experience if they had people from a variety of humanness, meaning like plus size people would have been nice. I was thinking it'd be interesting. Like, what if they had someone who was 65, like someone that you just like, you know, they had someone who was 24, but like, what if you had someone that you really you would write off immediately, you know? Or someone with a physical disability would have been nice to see that as well. But, you know, maybe I'm asking too much from reality TV. So, I mean, I do love that. I wrote down this sentence. It says, they say it right at the top. Psychologists believe that it is an emotional bond that attracts you, not physical, which I think I agree with. Here's the sticking point. This was another quote that someone said. It makes such a huge difference when there's no distractions and you can focus solely on finding love. We spend every minute of every day talking about dating. Things that take place in a date here may take months in real life. So I'm thinking, I was like, you know what? I don't even think that this is actually about not being able to see your partner. That's part of it. But I think it's really about the fact that in real life, it's really fucking, I've been talking to this guy for over 30 days and we cannot align our schedules. Like that is the real shit that's going down.
Yeah.
You know?
So same with The Bachelor. Like the relationships don't work out because you get back to real life and it's not like this, oh, like lovey-dovey, like, oh, let's just focus on us. You have a job and kids and all the other families. Yeah, I absolutely agree. So that's why reality shows, it's like you're in this bubble. But it's so interesting. Married at First Sight, I'm obsessed. Like I love when Dr. Cal sits down and like coaches couples. It's just fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, and then I had this aha moment kind of where I was like going back to the idea of like, well, what if we actually just intentionally focused on the dating aspect? Like it seemed like people were so ready to find someone and then without the distractions, it came very easily to them. And I kept thinking, I was like, well, what if that is the problem? Like maybe you just need to have permission to be in love or to have permission to be in love with the feeling of love, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Have you read the book on How Not to Die Alone by Logan Ury?
No, but I made a note of it because you mentioned her book, and I immediately was like, I have to read this.
It's on Audible. It's
I totally tagged it, and I was like, oh, interesting. This sounds right in my world.
Yes. So one of the things she talks about, she was a speaker at the matchmaking conference that I went to. She talks about encouraging singles to look for the slow burn rather than the spark, because so many people, they're expecting it to be like The Bachelor, all these shows where you see like the spark and there's instant chemistry, and people end up like getting obsessed with that feeling of like, when you're in a new relationship, the first few months, it's like so much dopamine. You're like high. And really the relationships that last are the ones where it's more of a slow burn. Like you have a really solid friendship. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I think I love this person. And so it's interesting. I really feel like the approach you take, the way you view love really impacts like how you date.
100%. And I think like diving a little more deeply into my hypothesis here, I wonder if that's not the reason why all of us are single. I say all of us because it feels like so many people, but what I also mean is like this community, my community in New York, the people of the podcast, or people who have been podcast guests, the idea that like we just don't have the time or the attention span to devote to a person to have a slow burn.
Yeah. And I think a lot of singles, and I'm not saying that you fall into this, but a lot of people fall into the trap of they're so obsessed with like romance and love, and they want like this really cute story about how they met, or they want somebody to like sweep them off their feet. I always tell people like if somebody was like so freaking charming and like an amazing first date, that they're probably not a great
like
partner.
red flag.
Yeah, huge red flag.
That was too good to be true.
They're a serial dater. Like they know how to be a great date, but do they know how to be like a great long-term partner? Probably not. Yeah.
Well, that's the trick of it, right? And this is where I go in circles with myself, is that most of my first dates do not go to second dates. And my friends are like, well, what happened with that date? And I will say, it was fine, but I'm not looking for a fine. Meaning like I got together with someone, we had a nice conversation for an hour and a half, and then I left and I didn't feel the impulse to either take that person's clothes off, kiss them, or learn more about them. So for me, I'm just checking in with myself and being like, nothing is jazzed about this person. I'm not curious about them. I'm not excited to see them more. It's not there for me. Right.
I think you're making a huge mistake because seriously, on first dates, number one, men are more nervous than women. Women always think that it's the opposite, but men are so freaking nervous. They're never themselves. They never let their guard down. They're so like uptight, and it feels like a job interview because they're so freaking nervous of like, for one thing, like with the Me Too movement and everything, they're so scared of like doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing. And so it's really hard to feel chemistry because they're not flirting like they're
not. Right.
But yeah, so I would say retrain your brain. Tell yourself you are somebody who always goes on second and third dates, no matter what. Even if you don't feel chemistry, you're somebody who always gives somebody a second and third date. When you start doing that, you're going to find that date 2, date 3, they're going to start flirting. You're going to start feeling chemistry because it's just not going to happen on date 1. It's not.
It has happened on first dates for me. It has happened. But most of the time I'm like, I don't want to leave a date feeling neutral. You know what I mean? Like I just want to be, doesn't have to be a physical attraction.
Like even like I think about my husband, like he's so freaking silly. Like he has this like really great playful sense of humor. But like on our first couple dates, I didn't see that because he was trying so hard to impress me and be like buttoned up and proper and, not offensive. And now like he's the funniest person I know, but I probably would not have saw that side of him like on the first date for sure.
Okay, Amber, I'm going to make a birthday pledge for you.
Do it. Do it for the whole month of June.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
For the month of June, I will give everyone a second date outside of somebody who's just so creepy and offensive. But, a normal person, go on a second date.
I was actually going to say I might expand that to the summer because even just getting a first date at this point has been really tricky. Like there's tons of people that match me and then never respond. That's how it goes. So there's a major, major drop off from people that are interested, but actually don't ever use their vocabulary to continue a conversation with me. And then there's people that like this situation where I can talk to them for weeks. And then this guy at least has asked me out on dates and I've been unavailable. But sometimes there's been months gone by and no one's even asked, like, do you want to get off this thing? So the amount of times we actually get off the damn app and into the real world are few and far between. I don't know. I can't guarantee I'm going to have a date in June is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I will expand that for summer.
That. Yeah.
I'm promising, all y'all are hearing me as witnesses. I am promising that if I have, this is the saddest statement ever. If I have a first date this summer, please Jesus, send me something. If I have a first date this summer, no matter how it went, I will 100% absolutely have a second date with them.
And you have to give an update. If you go on date number 2 and you feel something like developing beyond what was on date number 1, like you have to share like your insight from that.
I will. I will share that with our listening audiences, and I will let you know as well.
Awesome.
We're doing our own Love is Blind experiment. I don't know what we want to call it here, but this is another social experiment. Let's have second dates is what it's called.
Yes, I love it.
Let's have second dates and see if I'm wrong about connect. You have to connect. This is my thing. And this is, all right, this goes back to the show. So the whole point is having an emotional connection before you have a physical connection. But someone did make a comment that was like, someone asked someone, how important is a great sex life before you get married to someone? And I was like, I think it's massively important. So these people are getting married without even having kissed each other. They don't know if they relate to each other sexually. So even though we want to take the physical attraction out of the equation, it can't not exist. So what they're actually hoping for is that they connect emotionally first, and then they are sexually attracted to each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two definitely go hand in hand. I mean, the opposite is true. I'm sure you have, and we've all been in relationships where you had great sex and then like the person pisses you off or does something and, you're mad at, and then all of a sudden you don't have that emotional connection. And so your sex life changes. So I think, yeah, you definitely have to have a full connection, both sexually and emotionally.
Yeah. I never, I've been spewing my theories about the show, but I never paused to actually ask you. I mean, I heard you say that you like it and you think it's fascinating to watch, especially as the social experiment of believing that people should be connecting emotionally and value-based connection versus the physical and the exterior. But do you have any other thoughts or theories that you want to share about the show?
No, I think that it just yes, it's reality TV and it's highly scripted and,
Right.
whatever. But I do think the concept is fascinating that Love is Blind because it does go beyond like the physical. I can't even tell you what percentage of women tell me they want a guy who's over 6 foot tall. Like probably 99% of women say that.
So dumb.
The reality is 14% of men in the US are over 6 foot tall.
Right,
so
exactly.
and so, people fall in love with the guy who's 5'9" and live happily ever after all the time. So I think
Right.
it's just fascinating to like have people really think about like how they feel with somebody, like what the vibe is before they see how tall he is. I just think the concept is really interesting. Even like I said, my husband's visually impaired. And so our relationship sometimes like, if I am like in work mode and focused and like, don't talk to me, I've got to get stuff done, and just very dismissive of him, he'll be like, wow, like you're really unattractive to me right now, because he can't really see how I look, but he can feel it. And so he always tells me that. And so I'm like, wow, it'd be really easy for me to like seem like a supermodel to him. All I have to do is be like super nice. So it's just funny. We play with that concept all the time of like how you like are physically attracted to somebody beyond just sight.
Yeah. What is attractiveness? That's fascinating. Yeah. The other thing about the show that pissed me off was like, they only, if you Google cast members season 1 Love is Blind, it's all, the only content you could find is the couples or the people that ended up, trying to get married. I was like, there were like 28 people on this series and some of them never got airtime. Like, what about their story where they tried this social experiment and it didn't work for them? I want to hear from them.
Me too. And I know there were like a couple women who were probably not like as skinny as like what, normal American men look for. And I would be so interested in hearing like what their experience is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So no offense, Amber, I don't know if I'm going to continue watching it.
I will still think it's a fun, like,
no,
when
it's
you're
fascinating.
Yeah.
It also kind of, I think I also personally have a hard time with dating shows because then all sorts of emotions come up with me when this woman's like talking about how she's 34 already. And I was like, honey, yeah, like I'm 41, or like, like, what does that say about me? Or, it's triggering in a way that The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is not, because I have a lot of schadenfreude for, like, I watch that and feel better about my life. I'm like, oh, these people are a mess. A hot mess.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're 23 and they're all talking about having babies. I'm like, girl, go get your life together. So, but because, as you said, the people on Love is Blind were like a little more normal, like regular folk. Maybe that's why, like, it just, I don't know. There's something, it's because dating and being single is so close to my heart and so much part of my identity. It's a little hard to watch and those questions come up, where you're going, okay, well, I thought I was good, but now am I good? You know?
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I would say I'm not a big TV watcher. When you do watch TV, like watch whatever brings you joy. I feel like TV should be like something that's so mindless and like,
Right.
just something that you feel happy watching for sure.
Do I want to be reminded that I'm single watching this show?
Right.
Maybe not. But, and then I'll just say one last thing about it. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso? So I watched both seasons of Ted Lasso, and
what is Ted Lasso? It's a TV show?
Yes, it's on Apple TV.
Okay.
And it's about an American football coach who is recruited to coach a English football team, meaning soccer.
Okay.
It's great. It got a lot of awards, but there's an aspect of it where the woman who owns the team, they're sponsored by a dating app called Banter. And the setup of Banter is that it's text-based. There's no photos. And the comedy setup, of course, is that she matches with one of the football players. And then they realize it and they're like, oh, we can't do this. And then they, fall into bed together. But I was like, why isn't there an app that's text-based? That's like, you have to actually use your words and flirt a little bit and have some banter before you decide to go on a date. There should be.
There probably is. It just probably hasn't reached mainstream. I feel like there's all kinds of dating apps. I know there's one where it is based on the fact that you can't see each other. It's something like blind dating. I don't know what it's called. But it's in that concept. And the more you talk to each other, your picture, little parts of it appear.
That's so cool.
Yeah, there is something like that, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it for sure
I'm gonna
exists.
I'm gonna have to go hunt. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I would do that. Just to have someone actually, like I said, use their vocabulary.
Use their words, yeah.
I'm so tired of you liking my photos.
Yeah.
So Amber, keeping in line with the theme of my birthday month here, in our last final moments, I thought I would just volunteer myself to get into the hot seat a little bit, make this a little more personal. Let's pretend I'm interested in becoming a client of yours. Where would we start?
We would start probably with a conversation that you wouldn't have with everybody, but I really like to take a deep dive into where somebody comes from. So how they shape their core values, especially around love and relationships. So we start with talking about your childhood, your parents' relationships, what you grew up thinking about love and relationships and who your role models were. So that's kind of where we start. But then I would also just ask you, what does love look like for you? I know you kind of mentioned marriage isn't the end all be all, but if you had to paint a picture 5 years from now, you're in the best relationship of your life, what would that look like?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I'm not sure that I've ever allowed myself to fully visualize that. And that's probably a session for another time with a therapist, maybe. But I think the thing that I really want in my life, and I don't want this to sound cliche because I hear a lot of these things all the time. I hear that people want someone that champions them. I want someone that challenges them, that can hold a conversation with them. For me, in my New York life, it doesn't necessarily look domestic in terms of marriage, quote unquote, settling down, children, dogs, things like that. But I do want someone to engage with me on an intellectual level that can also be part of my world. So what that means is I love to spend time exploring on the weekends and going to different things, going to museums and going to shows and going hiking in nearby parks and going to the beach and traveling and having a companion to do that with who is socially intellectual and intellectually curious. And that's someone that approaches life as well, we've never done this before, or I've never done this before, so let's give it a try. And socially intellectual means like if I go to a networking party or an after party or a premiere party for something in my world, that person can come to this party and I don't have to babysit them. they can, I'm like, they can
hold
go
their
make
own.
friends. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that we're buoying up each other in our own individual lives, but in that way, supporting each other to be the best people that we can be.
Yeah. Do you see yourself living in New York?
I do. I very much feel that this is my city and this is my future. And that I think also is a trick. It's a tricky challenge because, like, what if I met the person of my dreams and they're on vacation and they're like, I live in Denver? Like, would I up and leave New York City to go live in Denver? I don't think so.
Well, he can move to New York.
Well,
You know what you
obviously.
need? Yeah. You know what? I see you with somebody like who's not a New Yorker, but somebody who could totally live there. I think your guy's going to come from, growing up somewhere else or going to college somewhere else, and maybe is in New York now. But yeah, you need
Well,
like a transplant.
Most people in New York, are not born and raised. They're like, they come from somewhere else. But I think what I'm describing, if I can sort of be a little clearer, is more of an approach to life than describing a specific lifestyle or mentality.
So after you go on a first date with somebody, are you asking yourself the questions that are related to like where you see yourself with a partner? Like, are you asking yourself, like, did I feel more energized after the date as opposed to, when I started the date? How did that person make me feel? Did I feel like curious about him, or was he curious about the world around? Like, are you asking those questions, or are you just asking like, oh, was there chemistry? Did I want to kiss him?
No, I'm so glad you asked me that. I actually have sometimes when I leave a date and I'm like not sure how I feel, I check in with myself and I have these 5 questions that I ask myself. And one of them is, did he make you feel desired? So that's, again, a feeling. It's not did I desire him, but did he make me feel desired? One of them is, am I curious to learn more about him, his life, his background, his family, his lifestyle? Like, do I have questions? Like when you meet that person and you're like, okay, I want to know more about you and what makes you tick, like that energy that you talk about. One of them is, did he make me smile? And the sort of like sub question to that is, did he make my eyes dance? And I love that question because only you know what that means to you, right? But for me, it is a very specific, like when I'm with a guy that I'm into, I can feel my eyes change, if that makes sense. And the last question is, did he disarm me? Because sometimes I think I come in with a very strong energy, very straightforward energy. I'm a conversationalist at heart. I interview people. I come in, I'm in control. I'm like, I know I give good first date, right?
Yeah.
But when I meet guys that get me off my game, it's fucking sexy. I'm like, oh my God, he threw me and I didn't know how to respond to him. I didn't know. That's thrilling. That's exciting.
Yeah.
If I felt like I was not in control in the date, we gotta see each other again.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? I think that some of the guys that probably could disarm you, they're so guarded themselves because they're trying to be like, follow the rules and, they're trying to be the good guy. So I'll tell you this. I have a couple right now. They're engaged. They're freaking adorable. They're so in love. And after the first date, she didn't want to go out with him again. And the reason she told me was he was too nice. She's like, he was too nice. I could walk all over him. And I was like, okay. And the first date, of course he was too nice. Like, that's what men are supposed to do. They're supposed to be nice. Yeah. But I think as women, a lot of times, because we are attracted to the guy that has a little edge to him, if they're too nice and we feel like we could run the show and walk all over him, we're like, oh, nope, next. But you know what? He definitely can run the show and he definitely has control. But she needed like 3 dates to see that side of him. And so she, against our advice, like we literally, our whole team had to talk her into it, went out with him again, and now they're like living their happily ever after. And I think that's what this will do for you this summer, giving somebody a second and third date. Like you'll start to see more of those first date questions you have, which are great questions, by the way, but you'll start to get different answers from the second date. If you ask yourself those same questions again, you're going to feel differently.
I'm very excited about this experiment.
I am too.
And then hopefully maybe someone will film me and we'll turn it into a show.
Oh my gosh, that would be great.
I'm kidding. Like, love is blind. What did I call it? I gave it a name.
I don't know. It should be Jeanette as a second dater. I don't know.
We're going to work on it. It's being workshopped, you guys. We're going to come up with a better title. Work in progress right now. Amber, it's been so awesome to have you on the podcast. And again, I'm like, you're so gracious to have such patience with me as I, try to run this podcast.
Yeah. And listen, Jeanette, I want you to put yourself in our network, put yourself in our free network. Go to selectdatesociety.com.
Done.
Fill out the inquiry form, upload your photos. I'd love to be able to consider you as a match for someone.
Hell yeah. Why would I? Yeah, that's yes. And to all of that. I'm excited about that. And I would love to be part of your network. And, I get such wonderful energy from you. So if you're behind that, like, I'm on board. Even if you were just like, you're going on this date with this guy, he lives in Australia and we're paying for the flight, I don't know. I'm getting weird. But I'm just saying, it's like, if you believe in something, like, I feel like I would follow you. I would be like, I believe you see something that I don't see. I believe in your vision. So.
And that's why matchmaking works. It really does. If the matchmaker takes the lead and the client trusts them and believes in them, that's where the magic happens. Absolutely.
Well, it's so easy to see why you're successful and why your clients love you. Congratulations on all you've accomplished so far and your gorgeous life story. I couldn't be more grateful to have you here with me and to share your work with others. And I assume it's okay if anyone who's listening to the podcast can join the database as well, yes?
Absolutely, yes. Go to selectdatesociety.com. Yep. And Jeanette, I'm so excited. I'm going to keep listening to hear how your summer dating experiment goes.
I have an accountability partner.
Yes.
I'm on it.
All right.
I'm excited. Well, thank you again, Amber. You guys, if you like this episode, if you are curious about matchmaking and being part of a network of matchmaking, log into Select Date Society and see if you can maybe change the energy of your dating life. I don't know, maybe do a social experiment of your own. Report back to me how it goes. Either way, thank you for listening so much. As always, we're over on #SinglePod on Instagram. Join us for more fun conversations. And that is it for this episode. We will catch you next time.